Good evening. Hope everybody's having a wonderful weekend. Um, Thank you for stepping into the Foul Playland on my new channel. Behold, as always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn, and wanted to talk about some of the happenings of the weekend. It seemed like, in at least for this year or recently, a lot of stuff with the Trump administration, in at least in the 47th iteration. I mean, the Trump's second iteration as president of the United States. That a lot of stuff pops off uh, during the weekend, Friday, Saturday. I mean, and last weekend I believe is the weekend in which they captured Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. I wanted to talk about that too later. Shit is trash. Peace to you, Michael Johnson, Boxing Talking More. But I actually have a weird story that I read regarding the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Um, that I read. I actually read it on Twitter, and then the story was actually shared by Trump's press secretary, and then just a couple minutes ago, it was actually on the New York Post and in a story that they shared, and it was regarding some new technology that was employed against the soldiers that were protecting Nicolas Maduro. I'm going to talk about that later, but nevertheless, every weekend it seems as if something during the Trump administration has popped off, um, like leading into the weekend, like during Friday, Saturday, and this year has been no different. In fact, um, just in the first weekend of this year, you had the capture of Nicolas Maduro, and I was expecting something else to pop off too. I mean, like one thing I will say, like that's different this weekend is the fact that there's large demonstrations happening in Minneapolis. There's also large demonstrations happening in Los Angeles. From what I saw on Twitter, and they were really large in size. Like, you're talking about 1,000 people, probably plus, in both cities. But it's something to take note of. I mean, I could get into what I think would happen in those instances, but just keep an eye out, I guess, because I mean, at the surface, I mean, Trump was ordered by judges, rogue judges or activist judges, to withdraw troops from Minneapolis, I believe, was one of the cities, Portland, Oregon, Chicago, and now these cities, in light of a protest that's happening, and I'm pretty sure it's in reference to this young woman that was shot by a ICE officer and whose life was ultimately ended, which is unfortunate. But the leftists, lunatic leftists, don't need any real reason to tear stuff up. Let me see. LH9, a lot of numbers, said hi. Hi to you as well. Those aren't rogue or activist judges. Yeah, sure. I mean, you would probably. I mean, you're probably not keeping score. And if you add up all the times that judges have imposed on, add every administration of the past like 20 years, they won't don't add up to like the times that judges have, or rogue activist judges have tried to cock block Trump. I think he's had 93 judges try to step on something that he's trying to put forward. Meanwhile, every other administration, you'll probably have maybe 20 times. I mean, and this is and just in this second go around, I think Trump has been uh, imposed by a judge 93 times. But that remains to be seen. Let me see. That's what the job is, and maybe it's Trump's fault for doing stuff he shouldn't be doing. Yeah, I mean, but like, how many judges? If by that same logic, when you had Biden opening the border wide open, and how much damage that caused, or imposing mandates for the military and on the airline industry, how many judges did you see jump out the window and try to block Biden on not just those two things that I mentioned, whether it be mandates or a wide open border, on anything that Biden did. Like, how often did you see a judge jump out the window? Whereas, under the Trump administration, it seems like all these people, whether it be the media, rogue judges, rogue activist judges, will change the rules up just for one man, or at least that's what I see. I mean, I think most people that are not picking a side would probably see the same thing. You know, um, and a lot of times these judges too somehow impose themselves on these cases, like that Boasberg judge. I mean, he has a real shady past too, but I guess some of this stuff will come to light in the future. But most people um, probably aren't as informed as you are, like Michael Johnson, and they and like most people don't have the time to look into all these things. But I think a lot of times people, if they don't want Trump to get a sort of victory, they'll look past. I'm not doing YouTube, love. They'll look past something that's obvious, is what I'll say. Trump is trash, LMAO. Trump's good people, man. Mrs. Longbottom, cool name. Hey, bro, Jesus loves you, man. Hope you have a great night. Thank you, ma'am. I mean, and I hope you have a great night and a great weekend as well. But going back to like the stuff that's happening in the Trump administration for this weekend, I mean, the big thing is the protests that are happening in Minneapolis and also in Los Angeles. It's probably going to be in other cities too. It probably would have been happening here in New York as well, but we have really bad weather, rain. Um, but uh, the big thing that's happening now, I mean, like a lot of things, a lot of exposure is happening all at once in America and throughout the world. But in the case of America, Trump's doing things that are really an effort to try to benefit Americans, even if it's by force. Like when there's talk about like taking Greenland, at the end of the day, that would benefit Americans greatly. I mean, not only for the minerals that are in Greenland, but also as a buffer to Russia and to even Canada. Canada is not a good partner up north. Like Canada serves as almost un derpy opposition to America, the way their politics are. Let me see. Republicans don't want Democrats to succeed as well. I agree, but Republicans don't work like one blob or like one unit like the Democrats will do. And like, I mean, whether like people think, or you or anybody else thinks that that blob is working in conjunction just because they have a great hate for Trump. Nevertheless, like, how often will you see a Democrat like not vote along party lines, like, whether that be in Congress, Senate, whereas often you'll have Republicans that'll break ranks. You just had a vote in the Senate for the Venezuelan, I think, War Powers Act, where you had 5 Republicans defect with their votes. You'll never see that from Democrats. Democrats, like, whether they'll have a comatose Joe Biden as the president, they still went along with everything that he pushed forward. Like the especially with the border. I mean, like the border was a big example. I mean, even with the mandates too. I mean, like a lot of people want to forget 2020, like to this point. But the mandates, I mean, like, when you're aligning yourselves with big pharma, something that's not like atypical of liberals or Democrats historically. I mean, I'm speaking as a ex liberal myself, politically at least. Then how like you didn't have one single liberal or Democrat like in politics speaking out against like mandates or all the stupidity that happened under the Joe Biden administration. the derpiest presidency, the worst presidency in history, Joe Biden's presidency. Let me see. Them 5 Republicans did so because Trump is wrong. Nevertheless, I mean, do you think Biden was right with the push mandates and opening the border? And like, how many Democrats um, vocally disagreed with Biden on that, on those two things, which are pivotal, real big, never seen before issues, like the opening of the border, like the way it was under Biden, or like pushing jab mandates. How many of them, spoke with their conscience in that instance? Zero. You know what I'm saying? The, but like I said, a lot of the people that tend, and that's one of the reasons why to me Trump is such a likable politician. One, I don't like any politician for the most part, but secondly, you have a lot of people that work against him. I mean, even if he does something right, they'll just try to find the bad part about it. Um, and that's what makes it. I mean, at least for me, like easy to root for Trump, and the fact that at least on the surface, a lot of what he does is benefiting of the nation in which I live in, the nation of my ancestors, which is America, and I'm American through and through. Even though I'm Puerto Rican from New York, but I'm definitely America because I live in America. I was born in America. I love America. My kids will live in America in perpetuity. I want to dominate America. I love this land. Let me see. Them 5 Republic. Yeah, that was the last thing. But um, going back to the stuff that's happening with this administration now. I mean, you have the exposure of the Somalian population, um, siphoning funds away from America. This population that has came into America. I mean, it's not like as large as maybe say like the Venezuelan population or the Chinese population that has also entered into America and is also siphoning funds from America or our goods. But it sort of kind of like highlighted something that maybe most Americans didn't know. Most Americans didn't think that this population from West Africa, um, that's highly Muslim or Islamic, they stick to their guns as far as their religion goes, like, are extreme about their religion, are smack dab in the middle of lily white Minnesota, you know, and that they're extremely tribal about their way of being while they're living in Minnesota. Um, they're also now being showcased as taking advantage of the American system at a time when America right now is probably fiscally or financially doing its worst. And I mean, it's unfortunate for them that they have to be the example or the principal example as to a community that's taking advantage of America, that's not of America. But that's how the cookie crumbles in this case. I think that it's a good example. One, I've been around the Somalian community in Maine, in Washington D.C., and they are very tribal. Like they stick to themselves. They're kind of pricks. I mean, the ones that I've encountered, cock block. They're not really into assimilating. They frown upon the so-called minorities of America. This community that's from Africa kind of like shits on, the so-called black people of America, and makes it seem as if they're lazy or as if they're better than, and now, now that they're under a lot of pressure from the from the media and from the president, now they're looking for alliances with the so-called black community of America. And it's good to see that that debate is kind of coming to a head. And it's good to see that, for the most part, from what I've seen, the so-called black community has turned their back on the Somalian community, and I give the so-called black community many props for doing that. It's about time that they start looking out for their own interests rather than making a debate out of trying to stick it to the so-called white man in America by aligning themselves with anyone, honestly. And I mean, that's what's happened the last 15 years or more. With that's from my observation as an outsider. Again, although I have many family members that are part of the so-called black community, but I've also seen that a lot of apathy from that community when it comes to their own interests, but a lot of emotion from that community when it comes to somebody else, getting their feelings hurt. Let me see. Nah, the cookie crumbles like that because folks are using the Somali fraud to boost their political profile. They're not talking about no other fraud. Nah, I mean, and that's a somewhat of a point, but it makes a good segue into talking about all the communities that are taking advantage of America that are not of America. Again, like I don't like care if there's some American that's benefiting because from the system, like whether that be welfare or Medicaid, because they're having a rough go of it. Things are rough in America right now, and I mean, I think a lot of people do need assistance, but I also don't see like where it's fair for like somebody to come from, you know, China, and they dump their elderly on us, and those old people like automatically get Social Security, or Somalians, coming from where they come from, and all of a sudden now all their boys got autism and they qualify for Social Security. And again, too, I mean, if you try to naturalize yourself and become part of the American landscape, that's one thing. But to come up in here and act like you're better than like the Americans that are already here, and then I mean, like from what I've seen, like with the Somalian community in like a lot of these um instances in which they're showing video of them doing their thing, like or being exposed for like running these like healthcare centers, for example. They already got the liberal woke script down packed. Like, oh, like you're doing this because like we're black. Now all of a sudden like they're calling themselves black. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm pretty sure they never called them. They probably always refer to themselves as Somali and try to make some sort of distinction between them and the so-called black men of America. But now, I mean, I think they're sneakily, like in a sense, trying to weasel their way into trying to find some sort of alignment outside of the people that they probably been guilt tripping, the gullible liberal white people of Minnesota. And again, I've seen that in Maine firsthand too. Like, I go to Maine like all the time now, and there's a lot of gullible liberal white people in Maine too. Guilty gullible whites. It's guilty gullible white women are the biggest one of the biggest problems that we have in America. I mean, and one just got bucked at in Minneapolis for trying to block an ICE operation. And I'm hopefully like people take a step back and start seeing what a big problem they are. Like they try to play the hero and try to use guilt as a weapon, whether that be against their own men, whether that be against people that are so-called minorities of America that don't align with their politics. The liberal white woman is vicious against so-called black men that are conservative, against so-called Hispanics that are conservative. They'll be racist as well. Like how could you like how could you vote for Trump? With your people. Like how could you people like like they talk quasi racist, like when you just hear them how they go about things. Let me see. They say Tim Walz go away, but what about the governor of Florida or Texas with their fraud cases? You'd have to tell me about the fraud cases though. Jews do the same things. I mean, that's a good point. That community is definitely taking advantage of a lot of the benefits that America has to offer. I mean, and again, whatever way in which America comes to that conversation in which a lot of these outsiders are taking advantage of America, and if in this case it's Somalians that are the example, then I'm cool with it. I mean, like if Somalians got to go because of that, like first, I mean, I don't consider that a loss. I mean, if they're the only ones that get booted out of here because of this, I mean, that's less people, and I want less immigrants in America. But I think the natural course of things would be that, like, people start pointing out other communities that do the same thing, that take advantage of, and maybe we could start getting them out of here too. The less people that are not Americans in America, the better. For that's for at least from my perspective. Let me see. Nah, y'all Trump plantation folks are the problem. I don't get in what sense. Somalis got to go, but why are they here? Oh, cause we effed their country up. I mean, like it's not a natural progression, and I mean, and we really didn't mess their country up. Like Somalians are actively messing their own country up in 2023. That country's and on top of that too. I mean, I'm not set tripping on anybody's religion because not all Muslims are cut from the same cloth, but radical Sunni Muslims anywhere are a big time problem, and they're 99% Sunni Muslim, whether that be in Somalia or in America, and it's not fair for us to have to import a problematic country wherever they're at into America. I mean, or else we become like Europe, and Europe's a mess. Europe has a lot of gullible, guilty white people that did the same thing. They started importing outside communities um, because I don't know, racisms or like some dumb excuse. And now, like, they can't even speak up about the fact that they're encumbered by migrant communities. Even on social media, you get a visit from the cops, and we were one president away from that same stuff happening in America. Like, had Trump not won in this last election, we were one step away from. I mean, the same kind of censorship that was happening from 2020 to 2024. I mean, it still happens to some degree now, but not as bad as it was happening in the beginning of 2021, 2020. For us to have that same kind of censorship, and maybe who knows, like maybe they change like their verbiage and saying like, well, we got to start going after these people at their jobs. I mean, and they kind of already were putting that stuff into play. I mean, like with when you see how President Trump and his family were debanked by like Chase and J.P. Morgan, a lot of that stuff I'm sure had to do with that they were receiving by the Joe Biden administration or the people that were pulling Joe Biden strings, because we all know that Joe Biden was comatose. Let me see. No, we did effing help. As far as help with messing up Somalia, I don't know. I mean, you have to give me some examples, but regardless, like it doesn't merit the fact that if America was adventuring in Somalia during the 90s, built under the Bill Clinton administration, how that should merit me, some Puerto Rican dude from New York, having to tolerate seeing Somalians when I go to have my little vacation in Maine, or why I had to pay their for their quarterly Leering Center in Minnesota, or why I have to flip the bill like for this community that doesn't really love America. It seems. I mean, like from what I see of their community in Washington D.C., from what I see of their community in Maine, and like from what you're seeing in Minnesota, they um they don't love America. I mean, like so why like I mean, I understand if they may not be enamored with the country and they just happen to be here, like, but should we also be footing the bill for their existence and them to leech off our Medicaid and welfare? Absolutely not. Let me see. Yep, bro, Google it. Like, Google what though, bro? That Leering Center is not the only daycare. Bro, that learning center is not the only daycare receiving government funds. Yeah, it doesn't matter though. I mean, like they have a ton of daycares that are receiving government funds that don't have any sort of student enrollment, or if they do, it's a lot far limited from what they're saying. And it's not just daycare centers. There were feeding programs that were operated in Minnesota, run by Somalian restaurants, and they were receiving millions. Like the Minnesota government apparatus or policing apparatus wasn't inspecting these people, like and that it's kind of like just a vicious cycle. You have a voting block. I mean, and on top of that too, I mean, like I actually happened to watch a video that was happening in the 2020 selection, in which you had a scam or a scheme run by people, Somalians in Minnesota, where they were outright saying that they were trying to play some buffoonery with the 2020 selection, particularly like talking about the mail-in selections. I don't want to get the channel kiboshed, and they were talking about it candidly on camera, saying how they were hustling that system. And again, I mean, like I already see in New York City, whether that be the Russian community, the Chinese community, the Israeli community, the Venezuelan community of immigrants that take advantage of the system, and they do it in their attitude is pretty much like, these people are stupid enough to let us be here and let us take advantage of the system, and they ain't gonna catch us, so we're gonna keep doing it and we'll enrich ourselves from it. Nah, I don't want anybody here like that. I rather, again, more people be out of America like that don't belong here than for us to be going on a case by case basis and wondering like if these outsiders or non-natives of America are good or bad. Nah, get them out. Let me see. They gave um, the Quality Learning Center. You spelled it properly, but they spelled it wrong. The Quality Learning Center is not the only daycare receiving government funds. They're gonna find a bunch of white ones doing it if they look into IE fraud in Texas. I mean, throw them up then. I mean, like I haven't seen any sort of exposure in that fashion. And again, if there were a bunch of white Texas daycare centers that were capitalizing off the system, I'm pretty sure you'd have a bunch of guilty, gullible white liberals that would already have run all kinds of exposure videos, a la Nick Shirley in Texas, that would be throwing it up. And I mean, like they have more than enough time to do it now. Um, but I'm pretty sure like that it's not happening as rampantly as what you see with the Somalian community in Minnesota. And also, again, like at the end of the day, like those Somalians in Minnesota are outsiders to America. Like, I mean, none of them speak English. I mean, when they're trying to shoot video and showing what they're doing, like they're pricks about it. Like, they're getting all like violent. Like just today, they had a ICE operation in Minnesota, and they actually made ICE retreat, like because they were outnumbered by straight up Somalian dudes in sandals. Like nah, I don't need to see that. I mean, whether you agree with ICE or not, at least those people are doing their job and they're American. Those Somalian dudes are from a country that's ill savage type. They're nasty about being appreciative about the American experience. They think that they're better than tribalized, radical about their religion. Nah, in my eyes, they could go. Let me see. There is fraud everywhere, and the problem is the focus on one group of people all over fraud. All fraud has to go. I mean, I'm cool with all fraud going, but again, I mean, like, not much fraud is being exposed in general, but a lot of people like are set tripping because Nick Shirley, you know, picked the Somalians to go after. But at the end of the day, I mean, Minnesota is a hyper liberal state. Tim Walz was one step away from being, the vice president of America. Tim Walz actually brought up the fact that the Minnesota has this great system of childcare in their state and how it should be the model of all other states. And he knows, and it seems as if he knows that he's under hot water. I mean, like he went from trying to run for re-election to now stepping down, and now he's not running for re-election because he knows he's in deep. I think he knows he's in deep shit. He probably talked to Trump, or Trump probably put him onto game. Like, listen, like the feds are gonna be investigating you next. You may want to step out the way. Um, that's just my estimation. Again, but it's not. Minnesota has become a radicalized state by either a conjunction of radical Muslims, i.e., the Somali community, in addition to the guilty, gullible whites. Guilty, gullible whites, the problem with them too is that they stop anybody American from having any sort of normal discourse because they want to tear your head off. Guilty, gullible liberal whites, I mean, are the worst kind of people to exist around. I mean, like their cognitive dissonance problems are through the roof. You can't really discuss anything with these kind of people without being gaslit or without them wanting to, spit on you or tear your head off. And to have not only a tribalized Somalian community, in addition to guilty, gullible white community in Minnesota together, that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, I don't want to hand over uh, liberal victories to a state that just got liberalized, a decade or two ago. That's not right either. Nick Shirley's families are fraudsters. They're like, how so? Tim is the one that tried to pass the bill to stop fraud, and Republicans did what? Shut it down. You'd have to tell me what that is. I mean, like he's highlighting the fact that that their daycare system or is the the example for the rest of the nation on the debate stage against JD Vance, and now he's having to step down because that same daycare system has been exposed by Nick Shirley. I mean, so I mean, like, do with that what you will. But you know, a lot of the politics in this country have kind of went left in the last decade or so, probably since 2016. Um, and a lot of what we consider normal is highly not normal. And I think honestly too, it's the fact that I lived in New York City and I seen this happen with the Chinese community. Like the Chinese community, like they were dumping off a lot of their elderly um, into America and throwing them right into the social security system, into the welfare system. And these are people that don't speak a lick of English, and it set up a base for them in New York. They were influencing politics a lot in New York by the same mechanism. And I saw firsthand, like, and this was happening since the 90s. I mean, in my neighborhood, Sunset Park, Brooklyn. So I got to see like how this has now expanded to all sorts of immigrant communities living through a wide open border under the Joe Biden administration. Like how maybe I'm more privy to like how much damage this kind of stuff causes, than somebody who's not from New York City. And what's happened in New York City is now happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, for instance. It's been happening in Los Angeles, happening in Atlanta, Georgia, um, happening in Miami, happening in Charlotte, happening in Philadelphia. And it's not just a byproduct of immigration; it's a byproduct of extremely destructive for America liberal policies, and that's what we have in all these cities. Immigration is just one tool that they utilize. Degradation is another one. I mean, like having so-called minorities um, with no standards. I mean, like is another way in which they've degraded a lot of these cities and this country in general. You know, let me see. Tim is the one that tried to. Let me see. They were found guilty of fraud. Where you been? Who? The Nick Shirley's family? I don't know. No, I ain't hear of that. And again, the media, the mainstream media, were running stories on the Nick Shirley's. I mean, on Nick Shirley, trying to paint them out as like this MAGA influencer. And I've known about Nick Shirley for a couple of years already. And I mean, he doesn't seem like a MAGA person. Anybody who's not aligned with a liberal is like, according to the mainstream media, like MAGA and fascist, But again, like the mainstream media is no friend of Nick Shirley. I mean, he actually did the work of what the mainstream media should be doing by highlighting this Somalian fraud in Minnesota. So they're not friends of his, the mainstream media, that is. If there was any sort of fraud that they were undertaking as far as the Nick Shirley family, I'm pretty sure it would have been front and center as far as the mainstream media goes. I haven't seen any of that though, and I'm pretty in tune with what's happening, um, at least here domestically. Uh, they've been found the fraud. They just use these guys to push the political influence. They found the Google Nick Shirley family. How about that? I mean, I'm not gonna do it right now, but whatever fraud they've undertaken, I mean, is nothing compared. I mean, is nothing compared to what's being exposed in with the Somalian community of Minnesota. And again, ultimately, I mean, like Nick Shirley, his family are American. Just on that basis, I mean, like, and I know what Somalians get up to in the state of Maine, a state that I visit frequently. Um, how they're corrupting the politics of that state, how they're tribalized in that state as well, just like they are in Minnesota, just like I see in the videos that Nick Shirley has put out there. I've never visited Minnesota, but they just started pouring into Maine in the last like 2 years, and already they're in the school system, they're in the politics of Maine. They're tribalized in Maine, stick to themselves. Like doing the same schemes that they're doing in Minnesota. And the thing is too that in Maine, like you also have a large Chinese incursion that's happening up there too, but you also have a big time gullible, guilty white population that when you bring these things up, they want to tear your head off and call you a racist, just for noticing. I get, uh, Bruce Cass, salute. Thanks for coming through again, my brother. And if you guys whoever's watching this, subscribe to my brother Michael Johnson Boxing Talk and 866, in addition to Bruce Gas Boxing, Jazz, and more, 1969. Um, but again, I've seen how the Somalians community are taking advantage of the system in Maine, and they just got there. I mean, like I've been going to Maine for like 6 years now. They just got there maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, and they're already up to the same hijinks that you see on display in Minnesota. Um, but again, I mean, are they the only people taking advantage of the system that are not native to America? No. But is it a good time to start? How often was that conversation coming up? Would that be, that could name a country? How often did you see that conversation come up on the American landscape. Like, this community is taking advantage of lax immigration laws in America. Like, even me as a New Yorker, where I saw tons of Venezuelans, having to be put up in shelters that were designated for Americans, having them situated inside of schools, you know, and if you happen to notice as a New Yorker, you'll have a liberal white woman telling you, well, you're racist for noticing, or you're a bad person for noticing. They were telling this to so-called black people in New York, like, well, you know, you should already know how it is, like, to be done by the system, yada, like, just trying to obfuscate. Let me see. Trump supporters, please don't sub to my channel. Trump supporters, please support both of these channels. They need a little balance. Nah, but I mean, I don't see a lot of political talk, like, or like, that's not your main forte, I guess. Like, for neither one of you brothers. But again, like, and politics isn't even my forte neither. I mean, like, I was a political noticer, like, since I was a kid, but I mean, like, the condition of the country. I mean, how degraded have things become to where everybody's tribalized. Me included. I'm tribalized and being anti-liberal. I can't stand liberals. I can't stand communists. It's not anti-democrat. I was a Democrat myself. I mean, like, my first dip into politics was rooting for Democrat principles. But I know at the end of the day that Democrats hate so-called minorities, like, especially when the so-called minorities don't think how they want them to think. They view them as an enemy, and I don't like covert racism that liberals take part in. Some people will say that Republicans are racist, and that may or may not be true. But a lot of them will, when so-called minorities talk about Republicans being racist or liberals being racist, they'll say, "Oh, like, they don't even try to hide their racism," as far as Republicans or conservatives. And I rather have that. I rather have overt, like, feeling of how you feel about me or mine, rather than you acting like how typical, gullible uh, white liberals act, in which once you don't align with their politics, like, then they'll start showing their racism. And I've seen, many white liberals, calling so-called black people COON. I've seen uh I've heard it specifically, like, and I'm not even qualified to be deported. I'm not Mexican. I'm Puerto Rican, but I've in New York City, a place where there are many Puerto Ricans. I've seen, you'll talk to white liberal women, and they'll say, "Oh, well, maybe you'll be the deported next." Like, like, if you don't align with their politics, and that's a racism. A lot of things, like, that are considered conservative are very easily called racism by people that don't align with their politics. Yet I see big time reluctance with liberals having to come to any sort of clarity when these things are exposed on their side. You smell me? Let me see. It's good. Thank you guys for commenting too, because it actually keeps gives me stuff to talk about. Let me see. Man, Republicans can't do no wrong in your book. You can see the disinformation. Oh no, I hate Republicans, my brother. I'm 100% not a Republican. Republicans are derpy in themselves. Like, they just like to lose to liberals. The only Republican that I align myself with, or that I think agree with, is Trump. Trump's the only Republican I rock with. I mean, he uses a big stick to push an American agenda, and I live in America. You know, I'm with it. Puerto Rico, me no black. Nah, the Puerto Ricans are black. Puerto Ricans, when they describe their mix, they'll say that they're so-called black, which is actually more so-called Spanish and so-called Indian, but we're Moors by blood. Let me see. Yeah, but let me talk about the what's happening though, as far as what I think is gonna happen with this administration, like, or what Trump has planned. I think Trump wants to take control of this whole hemisphere from Greenland, Canada, uh, North America, whatever you, South America, Central America. He's gonna take control of this whole hemisphere, and that's for the good of America. It shouldn't be in like somewhere where China gets to benefit from anything in South America. China could piss off. You know, I was just thinking earlier how Joe Biden had said that China's eating our lunch. Meanwhile, his family's enriching himself with Chinese interest. But and then he's telling the American people that China's going to be eating our lunch in the next decades, while he's enabling China to eat our lunch. No more of that under Trump. But Brazil should, and I'll say the countries that should be on notice right now, um, in the hemisphere first. Countries in this hemisphere that should be on notice. Canada, I mean, they're derpy. We could just freeze Canada out. At the end of the day, if we want it to where nobody else could do business with Canada, we can make that happen very easily. Um, they have no other way to anybody to come to their shores unless if we wanted to really force the issue. But Canada is really not an immediate opposition to America. I mean, and Canada screwed themselves out of selling their crude oil to America, where now we have all the crude oil we need with Venezuela, at least in the short term. Rami VR, hi to you. Um, but I'll read some more comments too. But let me say what I think is happening with the America plan under Trump. But now you also have Mexico. Mexico should definitely be on notice. Mexico is not a legit or a good player when it comes to America. I don't. Mexico's president. I don't even know how she was put in there. Like, I think it was some sort of special election, but she acts as if she's scared of the cartels, and maybe she should be scared of the cartels. But why should America, or why should Trump, a politician who seems to be very adequate in handling opposition, have to deal with a neighbor in our southern border that is scared of a drug cartel? I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon we start having ground operations in Mexico and start hitting the cartel in Mexico. And maybe, it could be a position in which Scheinbaum, the president of Mexico, finds itself sharing a facility with Maduro, if it's found out that she's trying to stop us from hitting cartel targets, or if she's aligned with the cartel herself, which, if I had to guess, he probably is. Colombia also should be on notice, and Trump already put them on blast. I mean, Petro, I think his name is, the president of Colombia. He's a clown. Many times they showed him videos where he's drunk. He's probably on cocaine, even though he's due to end his presidency really soon. But he's also been put on notice for allowing cartels to run in Colombia. But I wouldn't be surprised if America gets operations underway in Colombia as well. Brazil. Brazil, Lula is not a good player. They've used their judiciary as a weapon against their oppositions in Brazil. It's too large of a country, too rich for them to be supplying other countries, i.e., Russia, China, Iran, aligning themselves with the BRICS. That's not going to happen, or shouldn't happen. Or I don't think that Trump wants that to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brazil is also a country that is in the sights of the Trump New America administration. Um, Nicaragua, I mean, they're a channel for a lot of the cartel narcotic operations. They should also be on notice um, as well. As far as outside of the hemisphere, South Africa specifically, I think that South Africa is involved with a lot of the operations that have been happening into America as well. Trump's already put them on blast, and even though it's not an immediate problem, and even though it's not in our hemisphere, um, I'm pretty sure that at some point it's going to be something that we end up partaking in, maybe limited strikes like we did in Nigeria recently. Who knows? But they're really not a immediate problem in my eyes. I think the immediate interest to America is for everything within this hemisphere, and I'm glad that Trump is doing his thing and making it known that we want to take Greenland, and we should do that already. I mean, we should put that on blast already. That wouldn't take much of an operation. I think Greenland probably has a couple of hundred troops, Danish troops. The Danish think that that Greenland belongs to them. Um, Trump is saying that he's going to take Greenland for America. I think he should already do that. As far as Mexico, I think that honestly, I mean, this is me. I think that we should make a sort of demilitarized zone. Maybe make a bigger border, take a nice big chunk of Mexico, the northern part of Mexico particularly, and steal it from Mexico. I mean, if Mexico can't handle their border, then we should handle that border for them. If Mexico can't handle their cartel problem, then we should take that problem off their hands. I mean, that's just me thinking out loud. And on top of that, too, the broadest part of Mexico is the part that touches America. And it would probably benefit America largely to take a nice chunk of that. No need to build a border wall. We could just take more border. Um, that's just me, though. And again, I mean, like, how effective was this embargo that we put against Venezuela? I mean, nothing's getting in and out of Venezuela unless it's by some sort of trickery with just a small part of our navy or a large part of our navy being on the shores of Venezuela. Panama, nothing's popping off in Panama. We took Panama, but by the same way we took Venezuela. So we've pretty much retaken control of the whole Caribbean, in addition to by just parking a few boats outside of Venezuela, taking the country of Venezuela. Limited operation, no soldiers died, and we pretty much scooped up the president of Venezuela and decimated any sort of immediate troops that they had guarding their president, with not one American life being killed. How great is our military? Let me see. We can't do that with Canada, bro. Remember, they have allies, and folks are gonna get fed up. I mean, which allies though? China. China's not gonna come to assist Canada um, when they have an ocean that separates us. But also too, I mean, like at the end of the day, a lot of Canadians are fed up with Canada. Like they're pretty much sacrificing themselves to a green movement, to inviting all sorts of immigrants into their country. Their cost of living has gone through the roof. they would probably welcome a expeditionary force of Americans to take out their leadership and to become part of this new America. You know, and everything's switching up too. I mean, nothing of the, we're entering into a new world altogether rapidly. You know, we're like I think that this year we've entered into the future for real. I mean, like not just with the appearance of drones, not just with the appearance of AI. Like AI wasn't thought about to be what it is, not even 2 years ago. And now everything's AI out of nowhere, and like people act like we're just gonna go back into living the way we lived, 20 years ago. Um, but we've entered into the future more so this year than I've ever seen before. And I also wanted to talk about the way they got Maduro and like as a sign of the future that we've entered into. But let me read some of the comments first. Greenland does belong to them. It's not a thing. Yeah, I mean, like they may think Greenland belongs to them because of some Danish ship arriving in Greenland in the past. But ultimately, I think I read somewhere that there's 160 Danish troops that are stationed in Greenland at this current juncture. I think Greenland's population is like 10,000 people. I read somewhere as well. 160 troops will get squashed by even the fattest American battalion. I mean, and then again, I'm gonna talk about the article I read regarding how they captured Nicolas Maduro. And according to the article I read, there was a interview done by somebody who was security for Maduro or one of the troops guarding Maduro, and he mentioned in detail what happened in the operation to take down Maduro. But I found it very interesting because I read it on Twitter first, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, like or most people, if you say, "Oh, I read it on Twitter," that they'll be like, "Oh, you're one of those conspiracy people." I'm not a conspiracy person, but I read it on Twitter this morning, early this morning, and it was actually shared by later by Carolyn Levitt, Trump's press secretary. And then again, I saw it on a New York Post news article, so it had a little bit of validation to it. But it was regarding a one of the security forces of Nicolas Maduro recounting how the operation in which America was able to not only beat the Venezuelans on their own soil, but take Nicolas Maduro alive from the country. But he mentioned that um, I believe that their radar, Venezuela's radar, out of nowhere stopped working, and that all of a sudden there appeared to be a ton of drones in the sky. And he mentioned about 8 helicopters of Americans that pulled up, and that it wasn't many American troops. He mentioned that it was about 20 American troops that landed onto the building or edifice, and that there were hundreds of Venezuelan troops that were guarding Maduro. But that, and this is where it gets into the futuristic stuff and why I think that we've entered into the future in 2026, in that out of nowhere that they used some sort of weaponry, the Americans, and that they heard a pulse, the Venezuelan guard troops, and that it felt like his brain and everybody else's brains were going to explode, according to the person that was being interviewed, and that um, a lot of the troops that were guarding Maduro started bleeding through their nose, and that he said he was bleeding through his nose. True, in addition to some of his peers, these other guard force, a lot of them started vomiting. He then said that the American troops were shooting about 300 rounds a minute, and that the guard forces weapons were no match. That they were squashed by this relatively small. When you think about 20 American troops, relatively small force that came after Nicolas Maduro in this operation. But if again you think about it, according to reports, only one American was injured in this operation. I mean, if they were fighting at least hundreds of troops, but there were reports that about over 300 people in this operation were killed. Um, Yet one helicopter from the about eight, according to this gentleman, was slightly damaged, but was still able to make it home. And one person of the Americans was injured, but he survived the injury. Um, but I wonder what kind of technology was used. What was that high pitched frequency that this soldier, the guard soldier, what was it that he and his compatriots heard, which pretty much disabled them from putting on a fight against our about 20 American troops? And I, wonder while I was reading that story. And again, I mean, like, Maduro, I said this yesterday, was paraded around New York City, not only to show the communist mayor of New York City, newly elected Zoran Mandani, that you too could be sharing a prison if you undermine America, like most liberal communists are prone to do. But it's also putting these other countries on notice too. Sheinbaum of Mexico, Petro of Colombia, Lula of Brazil, um, whatever the guy from South Africa's name is. Um, I would even put the Canadian politicians in that same realm, like where they could end up with the not only the wherewithal of the current commander in chief Trump, but also with the technology that's at America's disposal. Like, how bad did we hit Iran in this when we hit their nuclear facilities? How seamless was it for us to take the president of a nation in opposition to America, who's just a week or two before that was telling America to come and get him, and now he's sitting in a New York City jail in my neighborhood, Sunset Park, in the federal facility in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. But again, I mean, we've entered into a new world. We've entered officially, according to me at least, from my observation, into the future. And the immigrant problem that we have currently, um, it's gonna have to get settled one way or another. As big of a pain in the ass as it's been, how hard it has been for ICE to conduct a limited deportation operation. I mean, like, when you think about how many people that they've deported, it's probably under 2 million people. And look how hard it's been by us being opposed by shit liberals. I mean, today we were being opposed, like ICE was being opposed by Somalians in Minnesota from doing what they needed to do. Um, but it could have certainly been far worse. I mean, imagine if Joe Biden, Kamala Harris was the president, and we've entered into a new future um, under those two buffoons. And with liberals, I mean, like, liberals. In spite of the fact that I can't stand communists and I can't stand liberals, but I wouldn't go about and say, like, that I take joy in, like, seeing liberals' lives ended, or that I take any sort of victory in jailing a liberal. Like I don't take I think it's a victory for us to deport illegal immigrants, but liberal Americans are not my enemies. However, with the liberal political establishment and the Democrat establishment in part, they're very candid about their hatred for their opposition. So I say that to say how scary it would have been if, let's say, Kamala Harris was the president, and for these technologies that we put on display against Nicolas Maduro to be wielded against who they consider their biggest problem, which is American conservatives. What a crisis we averted as Americans by Trump winning this election in 2024. Now that we've entered into officially the future. But with that, my views are dissipating. I guess the YouTube doesn't like to talk about the future. But with that, uh, I actually had a good time actually talking to people like Michael Johnson, like my brother Bruce Gass. Michael Johnson, my brother too. But again, I rather conversate or actually talk to people than just look at my phone and not see anybody in the chat. So for anybody that watches this now or in the future, please do help this channel by commenting. Like if you can, share if you can. But most importantly, it's better when I have people actually watching than to be talking into a black screen. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for stepping into the Foul Playland with Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn on my new venture. Behold. Peace.